is Kaylee. So what if I told you that there are massive whale skeletons under the sand in the Sahara Desert? No, I'm not joking, and I'm not making things up. So I wonder, how many of you did know that whales evolved from a land-based animal back into an ocean-going mammal? So to look into the evidence, we need to look at the desert, which I know it sounds a little bit strange when, you talk about whales. Why would you need to look at a desert? It all makes sense. Did you know that there once was an ocean that used to roam across what is currently known as the Sahara Desert? But before going into things, I would like to mention that this video is sponsored by Magellan TV. As always, more on the sponsor later in the video. So approximately 37 million years ago, incredibly prehistoric creatures used to swim around in the enormous Tethys Ocean, or Tethys Sea, at what is today the dry and windy West-Egyptian Sahara Desert. A graveyard that's been discovered there, filled with fossilized whale bones, actually demonstrates the evolution of whales. So today we're going to look at the incredible location that is Wadi Al-Hitan, also known as the Valley of Whales or Whale Valley, located approximately 190 kilometers southwest of Cairo. This is the most important site in the world for the demonstration of whale evolution. So the common ancestor of whales, and actually all other land animals, was a flat-headed salamander-shaped tetrapod that threw itself out of the sea onto muddy banks about 360 million years ago. Its descendants gradually evolved the function of their lungs and their fins into legs and their jaw joints to hear in the air instead of water. But before we dive deeper into today's topic, I want to take a moment to recommend an incredible documentary available on Magellan TV called Digging for Britain. I've actually mentioned this documentary a while ago on my channel. If you're fascinated by archaeology like I am, this show is an absolute must-watch. In Digging for Britain, Professor Alice Roberts takes us on an exciting journey through some of the most groundbreaking archaeological finds across the United Kingdom. It's not just about the artifacts, it's about the stories they tell, like that stunning Iron Age chariot or the amazing Viking treasures. Each series digs deep, connecting the dots from various digs and investigations all around Britain, revealing how these discoveries are reshaping our understanding of history. As someone who loves to explore the past, I found it incredibly eye-opening to see how even the smallest find, like a World War II relic, can hold so much meaning and context. It truly illustrates how archaeology connects us to our shared human experience, just like the topic we're discussing today. So if you want to dive deeper and explore documentaries like Digging for Britain, I highly recommend checking out Magellan TV. It's ad-free, packed with fascinating content, and they add new 4K documentaries every week. Plus, if you click the link in the description down below, you'll get a 1-month free trial to explore their vast library. With Magellan TV, you'll discover that television can be both entertaining and intellectually stimulating. So what are you waiting for? Start your adventure in learning today with Magellan TV. So 60 million years ago, these evolved mammals, the descendants of the flat-headed shaped salamander species, turned out to be the most successful of the animal kingdom. But whales were among a tiny handful of mammals that actually made an evolutionary U-turn, evolving back to eat, move, sense, and mate underwater. So how whales accomplished this enormous transformation has baffled scientists for a very long time. Charles Darwin recognized the conundrum as one of the great challenges to his theory of evolution by natural selection. He eventually omitted his theories surrounding whales from later editions of his books. Ancient prehistoric species of whale used to roam around the enormous Tethys Ocean, and after their death, their bodies would slowly sink to the sea floor. For thousands of millennia, sediment built up covered the bones, and after a very long time as the sea slowly receded, the former sea floor became what we now know to be the Sahara Desert. As time went on, the wind started to blow away the sand and the quite soft sandstone that had built up on top of these bones, and after thousands of years, the bones peaked above the sand. Then, one day back in 1902, a team of geologists were traveling into a valley in the Egyptian Western Desert. The valley is now known as Wadi Al-Hitan, Whale Valley. Centuries of strong winds has sculpted the sandstone rocks, and at night it looked like the sand glowed like gold in the brightness of the moonlight. This desolate, dreamlike place has no water, but this dry valley is actually the place where these geologists came across hundreds of skeletons of whales and other prehistoric creatures. These skeletons date back to an era when a somewhat shallow tropical sea, known as the Tethys Sea, covered northern Egypt approximately 37 million years ago. The geologists at the time did not realize it, but these prehistoric specimens would offer clues to the question, how did whales become whales? One of these clues was actually the fact that some of these fossilized whale remains had feet. Scientists at that time had long suspected that whales once were mammals that had eased into ocean life over the course of millions of years, over time losing their 4 legs. Even modern whales, living in modern times, have vestigial hind leg bones, so this suspicion actually had a very strong basis. Unfortunately, there was not much in the fossil record that illustrated this transition. And that all changed when University of Michigan's paleontologist Philip Gingerich began excavating Wadi Al-Hitan in the 1980s. It was actually here where he came across hundreds of whale fossils, where he eventually found legs and knees in 1989 when they were excavating a Basilosaurus skeleton. Curator of fossil marine mammals at the National Museum of Natural History said that these skeletons are the Rosetta Stone of whale evolution, as this was the first time we could see what the hind limbs of these animals looked like, and they are bizarre. So there have been older specimens found of footed whales in other locations in the world, but Wadi Al-Hitan's fossils are unmatched in their numbers and excellent state of preservation. So all the whale fossils that we found in Wadi Al-Hitan are from the now extinct suborders of whales called the Archaeoceti, and almost all fossils found belong to 2 types. The Basilosaurus, which was a giant with an eel-like body, and the Dorudon, which looks more like the modern whale, but being more heavy and petite. The main difference between the modern-day whale and the Dorudon was the teeth. The modern whale has peg-like teeth, while the Dorudon had serrated daggers. So the current location of Wadi Al-Hitan in prehistoric times was most likely a warm, nutrient-rich gulf, similar to, for instance, the modern Baja California, where gray whales today give life to their young. Paleontologist Philip Gingerich believed that the Dorudon calved in the shallows, much like the modern gray whales, as there are an unusual number of juvenile skeletons at the site. Some of these skeletons bear bite marks on their heads, most likely inflicted by the larger Basilosauruses. Yeah, thanks guys. Some Dorudon skeletons were found with a variety of fish bones where their stomach would have been, which actually gave us some insight into their diet. So the Basilosaurus was a whale with 2 delicate hind legs, each the size of a 3-year-old's human leg protruding from its flanks. These little limbs were perfectly formed, but honestly, they were completely useless for walking. But they are crucial to understanding how modern whales became supremely adapted swimmers. The complete specimen of the Basilosaurus are the whale's Rosetta Stones, said Gingerich, as they tell us more about how the animal lived, way more than the fragmentary remains that are found in other places. So in the 1990s, and this is a lot of fun, so let's dive in real quick. In the 1990s, molecular biologists studying the genetic code of these ancient whales, in a twist of evolutionary events, concluded that the whale's closest living relative was the hippopotamus. Yeah, let that sink in for a moment. Pun intended on the sink. my dad jokes are really not great. They're mom jokes, I mean, sorry. In 2007, Gingerich found the fossilized remains of Aegicetes gehenna, which was the first late Eocene protocetid. Protocetids are early semi-aquatic whales from the Eocene, a geological epoch that started around 56 million years ago and ended around 33.9 million years ago. Modern whales use their tails to propel themselves through the water, but early protocetid whales were semi-aquatic and swam mainly by using their limbs. So around 37 million years ago, the protocetids adapted more to the water and became tail-powered swimmers, like we see with modern whales. This particular creature, the Aegicetes gehenna, has been well adapted for swimming, using the mid-body and tail, much like crocodiles swim today. So the body of this creature is similar to that of the ancient Basilosaurus, which is found in abundant numbers at Wadi Al-Hitan. So the most complete specimen has been found at Wadi Al-Hitan and is believed to be a male. It would have weighed nearly 2,000 pounds during its lifetime and would have been approximately 12 feet long. So alongside the whale skeletons here at Wadi Al-Hitan lie the fossilized remains of sirenians and reptiles, as well as shark teeth from a shark species that lived 41 million years ago. So for the past 40 years, Professor Gingerich and his colleagues have located the remains of more than 400 whales in Wadi Al-Hitan, and there are countless more to be discovered in the future. By discovering these fossils, they have been able to fill in the story of the evolution of early whales. They were hippo-like creatures, and they inhabited swampy lowlands in the Eocene times. The earliest whales appeared approximately 55 million years ago, during a spike in global temperatures and the beginning of the Eocene. Living along the eastern shores of the Tethys, the waters exerted a strong evolutionary pull. The Tethys Ocean, or sea, was warm, it was salty, rich in marine life, and free of aquatic dinosaurs, which is very important to note. Chasing new food sources deeper into the water, they gradually developed longer snouts and sharper teeth. 50 million years ago, they were great four-legged swimmers that still moved around on land. Approximately 45 million years ago, the water environment drew the whales farther out to sea, evolving their necks to be more compressed and stiffened, their toes stretched, and grew webbing similar to duck feet. Over time, as they continued to dive deeper, their eyes gradually migrated from the top to the sides of their heads. Even though they were finely tuned to life in the water, they still had to throw themselves on land on their webbed fingers and toes in search of fresh water and to bear young. But this all changed with both the Basilosaurus and the Dorudon some 40 million years ago, as they both had never set foot on land, crossing the ocean all the way to the shores of modern-day Peru. The final transition from Basilosaurids to modern whales began 34 million years ago during the sudden phase of cooling, which ended the Eocene epoch. A drop in water temperatures near the poles, shifting ocean currents, and an upwelling of nutrient-rich seawater along the western shores of Africa and Europe drew the whales into new environments and drove the remaining evolutionary adaptations. Adaptations like, for instance, the big brains, echolocation, insulating blubber, and in some species, baleen in place of teeth for straining krill. Wadi Al-Hitan has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since July of 2005. Approximately 14,000 people visit this unique location with its marvelous fossils each year. The site is well protected and managed, and it remains in an excellent state of conservation. But, as you can imagine, the site does deal with conservation threats, especially when it comes to visitor numbers increasing, and thus the chances of the fossils being trampled by people or vehicles becomes larger. The theft of fossils is another threat that the site has to deal with, as there is little protection against it. Many of them are just lying on the surface and can be easily picked up, which makes the threat of theft from the site very real. Natural erosion, as you can imagine, poses a threat as well. The wind and water at the site lead to new fossils becoming exposed, and other fossils might get lost and buried once more. In some cases, exposed parts of valuable fossils might require special protection from erosion and may get embedded by polymers so it won't get lost forever. I do highly recommend going to this site if you are planning a trip to Egypt. It must be an incredible sight seeing these amazing fossils out in the open. And I am hoping that I can one day do another tour in Egypt where we will actually be visiting this site, as I just have to see these whale skeletons in the sand with my own eyes. But as you know, I am first going to be touring Turkey in October of this year, and I would very much like it if you would join me. We've actually created a special 1-week option for the people with not as big of a budget to spare, to join me in Şanlıurfa to go see Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, which are some of the world's oldest man-made structures, and we will see Sokmatar, Haran, and the ancient city of Shuaib, and the Şanlıurfa Museum, and more. But there's still also the 2-week tour option where we will first go to Hattusa, Cappadocia, the Derinkuyu underground city, before we will travel to Şanlıurfa. So whatever your budget lets you do, please look into it and join me in Turkey. Both links to the tour options are in the description down below. And of course, be sure to check out Magellan TV and claim your 1-month free trial. You will not be disappointed. But with that said, you have reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed watching, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos, and click that bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I upload. If you haven't seen my previous videos yet, then click the card in the upper right corner, or click one of the links in the description down below, or click a video in the end card. I would also like to say a massive thank you to my patrons and my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting me. I've been sick lately, that's why my voice is a little bit more raspy and not my usual happy-go-lucky, bubbly Kaylee voice, but it's fine. At least my voice has returned. I woke up last week and I had no voice, just air coming out, which was fun. And yeah, I'm back with new videos. I've got some really special stuff coming up for you. So stick around. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!